Drunk driving is often seen as reckless, but the real horror shows when lives are destroyed in an instant. Behind every headline is a story of shattered families, innocent victims, and nights that ended in tragedy. In this video, we'll look at 6 more of the most horrifying DUI crashes ever recorded. Real cases where one bad choice turned into disaster.
It was May 3rd, 2023, in Jericho, Long Island, New York. 4 teenage boys were heading home after a team dinner. They had just celebrated a tennis victory, and the night felt full of promise. Among them were 14-year-old best friends, Ethan Falkowitz and Drew Hassenbein. Both were standout players at Roslyn Middle School. Drew was ranked 38th nationally for boys under 14. Ethan had already made the varsity team while still in middle school. They were well known, loved, and inseparable. At around 10:30 p.m., the boys were in a 2019 Alfa Romeo sedan. 17-year-old Zachary Sheena was driving, with a 16-year-old teammate in the back seat. Ethan and Drew sat on the right side. The car traveled on North Broadway, where the speed limit was 40 miles per hour. Coming from the opposite direction was 34-year-old Amandeep Singh, driving a 2019 Dodge Ram pickup. But Singh was in the wrong lane, heading northbound while traveling south. He had spent the evening drinking heavily and using drugs. His blood alcohol content was about 0.18, more than twice the legal limit. Prosecutors later revealed he had been drinking tequila and scotch that night. Singh was also speeding, nearly 95 miles per hour. The impact was devastating. Singh's truck crashed head-on into the Alfa Romeo, which then ricocheted into a nearby Volvo SUV, carrying a woman and her teenage son. They were injured, but survived. Inside the Alfa Romeo, Ethan and Drew died instantly. The car was so badly crushed that investigators described it as one of the worst wrecks they had ever seen. Zachary and the 4th boy were pulled out alive, but with serious injuries. Both eventually stabilized in the hospital. Singh, meanwhile, tried to flee. He stumbled from the wreck and hid behind a dumpster before police found him. When questioned, he showed little concern, at one point shrugging when asked about drinking. Singh was arrested and charged with multiple counts, including vehicular manslaughter and leaving the scene of a fatal crash. The next day in court, a judge denied him bail, calling him a flight risk. His criminal record went back to 2006 and included a previous drunk driving offense. Roslyn was devastated. Schools brought in crisis teams. Families and teammates described Ethan and Drew as gifted, kind, and full of life. Their coach said they weren't just teammates, but best friends who everyone loved being around. In court, the pain was clear. Drew's father said identifying his son's body was inhuman torture. Ethan's father said the tragedy was preventable. Both families spoke about futures that had been stolen. By February 2025, Singh pleaded guilty and was sentenced to between 100 months and 25 years in prison. Families and friends filled the courtroom, many believing it wasn't enough. Ethan's and Drew's parents spoke directly to Singh, describing the devastation he caused. Today, their names live on through foundations started in their memory. Ethan's foundation spreads kindness and optimism, while Drew's supports young tennis players. Both boys were doing what teenagers should be doing, celebrating a win, planning for the future. But instead, their lives were cut short, leaving a community to carry their memory forward. It was May 1st, 2025, just after 7 p.m. in eastern Idaho. A tour van with 14 people was heading east on US Highway 20 near Henry's Lake State Park, about 16 miles from Yellowstone's west entrance. The group, organized by T-Tour Holiday LLC, included tourists from China, Italy, and California. The van, a white Mercedes, was driven by 30-year-old Yu Zhang from Eastvale, California. Among the passengers were 28-year-old Ivana Wen from Milan, Italy, 71-year-old Jianping Li from Guangxi, China, 66-year-old Xiaoming Jiang from Guilin, China, 64-year-old Li Nie, and 53-year-old Aifeng Wan, both from Arcadia, California. Coming west in the opposite lane was a black Dodge Ram, driven by 25-year-old Isaiah Moreno from Humble, Texas. He was alone, and while weather and visibility were clear, his condition was not. At 7:15 p.m., his truck crossed the center line. Later tests showed his blood alcohol content was 0.20, over twice the legal limit. His vehicle went directly into the van's path. The head-on crash was sudden and severe. Both vehicles were disabled on impact, but within minutes, fire broke out. Flames spread quickly, trapping those inside. Roger Merrill, a 60-year-old local, arrived shortly after. He saw both vehicles engulfed in flames and recorded video of the scene. Thick smoke rising, survivors and bystanders standing in shock. Merrill noted how dangerous that stretch of Highway 20 is, given it carries over 10,000 vehicles daily during peak season. He also pointed out how long it took for emergency crews to arrive due to the remote location. 2 travelers who stopped at the scene rushed toward the wreckage. In the 10 to 15 minutes before the fire spread, they pulled 8 people out, including a child. Authorities later confirmed their actions saved lives. When first responders arrived, including Fremont County Sheriff Bart Quayle, deputies, fire crews, and air ambulances, they began treating the injured. 3 victims were flown by helicopter. Others were taken by ground ambulance to Madison Memorial Hospital and Eastern Idaho Regional Medical Center. Some were treated and released, but for 7 people, it was too late. Isaiah Moreno was killed instantly. 6 passengers in the van also died. Driver Yu Zhang, Ivana Wen, Jianping Li, Xiaoming Jiang, Li Nie, and Aifeng Wan. All were pronounced dead at the scene. The crash sparked a large investigation involving Idaho State Police, the National Transportation Safety Board, Fremont County officials, and consular representatives from China and Italy. Identifying victims and notifying families was difficult because of the international nature of the group. Idaho State Police confirmed Moreno's condition was the main cause. Captain Chris Wiedek later said, "Choices have consequences." Driving while unfit isn't just illegal, it's deadly. The Chinese Consulate General in San Francisco released condolences and confirmed 5 of the victims were Chinese nationals. They worked with U.S. officials to support families and demanded a full investigation. Highway 20 was closed for 7 hours as crews recovered victims and examined the scene. Investigators continue reconstructing the crash and reviewing other possible factors. That stretch of road is already marked for future safety improvements. For the survivors, the day meant to experience Yellowstone turned into disaster. In moments, 7 lives were gone, and many more forever changed. It was April 22nd, 2020, in Kew East, just outside Melbourne, Australia. On the Eastern Freeway, 4 Victoria police officers pulled over a speeding Porsche 911. The driver, 41-year-old Richard Pusey, had been caught going 149 kilometers per hour, almost 40 over the limit. He was erratic, tested positive for drugs, and the officers decided to impound his car. What began as a routine stop quickly turned into the deadliest day in Victoria police history. At 4:50 p.m., leading Senior Constable Lynette Taylor, 60 years old, and First Constable Glenn Humphreys, 32 years old, pulled Pusey over. After the positive test, they called for backup. Senior Constable Kevin King, 50 years old, and Constable Josh Presney, 28 years old, soon arrived. The officers were standing by the vehicles, preparing paperwork, while Pusey stepped away to urinate on the roadside. At 5:40 p.m., less than an hour later, disaster struck. A 19-ton refrigerated truck, driven by 48-year-old Mohinder Singh, veered out of its lane and into the emergency lane at about 100 kilometers per hour. It slammed into the police cars, the Porsche, and the 4 officers. None of them survived. It was the worst single loss of life in the history of Victoria Police. What happened next made it even more disturbing. Pusey, untouched by the crash, pulled out his phone. He filmed the officers on the ground, mocking them while making offensive remarks. He recorded for over 3 minutes, then walked away. He did not help, call for assistance, or stay at the scene. Later, he shared images online. Singh survived, but was incoherent and panicked when first responders arrived. Investigators soon learned he had been awake for almost 3 days with only 5 hours of sleep. He was under the influence of methamphetamine, hallucinating, and trafficking drugs. He later admitted he thought he saw stick figures and witches on the road. Dashcam footage showed he never tried to brake. Singh pleaded guilty to 4 counts of culpable driving causing death and other drug charges. In April 2021, he was sentenced to 22 years in prison, with a non-parole period of 18 years and 6 months. As for Pusey, he had a long history of unstable behavior. Neighbors described him as aggressive, loud, and hostile toward police. After the crash, he was arrested and charged with reckless conduct, destruction of evidence, failing to assist, and possessing drugs. He served 10 months in jail, and later, another 10 months for sending graphic photos of the crash in an unrelated dispute. He showed little remorse. The truck company, Connect Logistics, also came under investigation. Its executive, Simeona Tuteru, was accused of knowingly allowing Singh to drive while unfit. Though more than 70 charges were filed, they were eventually dropped due to mishandling of the case. The 4 fallen officers left behind families and unfinished futures. Taylor was a veteran officer and mother of 2. King was a father of 3, known for his calm judgment. Humphreys had just graduated, with a background in health science. Presney, athletic and ambitious, had joined only the year before. The day after the crash, Australia mourned. Flowers, silence, and blue-lit landmarks honored the officers. 4 lives were taken in an instant, and a community was left forever changed. It was early morning on March 4th, 2023, in St. Mellons, Cardiff. 5 people: Eve Smith, 21 years old; Darcy Ross, 21 years old; Raphael Jean, 24 years old; Sophie Rusin, 20 years old; and Shane Laughlin, 32 years old, were driving in a white Volkswagen Tiguan after leaving a Newport club. Hours earlier, they had been at a local bar called The Muffler. CCTV later showed them stopping at a petrol station, laughing and filming videos for Snapchat. No one knew it would be their last night together. Around 2 a.m., the car veered off a slip road near a roundabout and crashed into trees just 20 yards from the busy A48 road. The wreck was hidden by brush, invisible to passing cars. 3 of them, Raphael, Eve, and Darcy, died instantly. Sophie and Shane were critically injured but alive, trapped inside for the next 46 hours. Their disappearance quickly raised alarms. Sophie's mother, Anna Chertowich, called police by noon the following day. She made 10 calls, but officers told her not to worry, assuming the group was still out. Anna insisted this was not like Sophie, but police dismissed her concerns. By then, friends and family had begun their own search, with about 200 people driving around Cardiff and Newport. Anna even passed the crash site several times without realizing the car was just yards away. The group's last hours were pieced together later. After leaving Newport, they drove nearly 40 miles to a caravan park in Porthcawl, where they continued drinking and inhaling nitrous oxide. A man named Joel Leah, 28 years old, had been with them earlier, but was dropped off before the crash. CCTV confirmed he drove the Tiguan that night, without a license or insurance. Finally, late Sunday night, nearly 2 days later, a volunteer walking her dog spotted the wreckage. 3 people were dead, and Sophie and Shane were barely alive. Outrage grew when it was revealed that helicopters had searched the area but missed the car. Sophie had suffered severe injuries, brain bleeding, fractures to her spine and face, and burns from her seatbelt. Shane had a ruptured aorta, facial injuries, and multiple fractures. Both were placed in critical care. Months later, Shane appeared in court. Video from his phone showed him earlier that night, driving the Tiguan at 90 miles per hour while inhaling from balloons, sometimes with no hands on the wheel. Though not driving during the fatal crash, he admitted to dangerous driving and received a 1-year and 5-month prison sentence. His record included 23 previous convictions. Raphael Jean was the son of former footballer Leon Jean, who himself had convictions for reckless driving. For Eve Smith's family, tragedy struck twice. In 2015, her sister Zana had also died in a crash. Their mother, Emma, said losing both daughters had permanently changed her life. The Independent Office for Police Conduct continues to investigate how police handled the case. Meanwhile, the families are left grieving, knowing their loved ones were trapped so close to help that never came. It was March 16, 2025, in Napa, California. A quiet Sunday morning had just begun. The roads were empty, the sun had barely risen, and everything seemed normal. But at around 7:20 a.m., that calm broke in the worst way. 31-year-old Jessica Barajas was driving her black 2006 Nissan sedan south on Highway 29, near the Imola Avenue off-ramp. In the back seat were her two children, 10-year-old Damian Montanez and 9-year-old Aaliyah Montanez. Family described them as kind, loving, and full of energy. But within minutes, everything went wrong. The California Highway Patrol reported that Barajas was speeding as she exited the highway. Her car veered off the road, dropped down a 20 to 30-foot embankment, and slammed into a tree. The crash was severe. Both Damian and Aaliyah died at the scene. Emergency crews rushed in, but there was nothing they could do. Barajas, the only survivor, was pulled from the driver's seat with serious injuries and rushed to Queen of the Valley Hospital. Investigators quickly suspected alcohol, substances, and speed were involved. This was not seen as just a tragic accident. By the next day, Barajas was placed under arrest from her hospital bed. Napa County records showed she faced charges of 2 counts of gross vehicular manslaughter, felony DUI causing injury, and 2 counts of felony child abuse. Her bail was set at $500,000. Authorities believed impaired driving and excessive speed caused the crash. CHP Sergeant Andrew Barclay told reporters, 2 young kids lost their lives because of someone else's choice to drive impaired. That's a hard thing to get past. As investigators dug deeper, they built their case against her. Meanwhile, the community was left in shock. Family friend Angela Villasenor said, "Everybody is still in shock. The family is devastated." She created a GoFundMe to help pay for the children's funerals. The fundraiser described them as helpful, outdoors-loving kids who especially enjoyed camping trips in Lake Tahoe with their grandparents, Lilia and Enrique. By the end of the first day, more than $21,000 had been raised. The Napa Valley Unified School District released a statement of support and set up counseling for students and staff. Local residents left flowers at the crash site. One man, Gabriel Cardenas, told reporters, "At that time of the morning, kids should be at home watching cartoons with cereal." Not this. At first, Barajas faced charges of vehicular manslaughter and child endangerment. But by July 23, 2025, prosecutors announced the charges were being upgraded to murder. Napa County officials pointed to her history of traffic violations as part of their decision. That week, a judge ordered she be held without bail. She was officially charged with 2 counts of murder, felony DUI causing injury, and 2 counts of felony child abuse. Her next court date was set for August 12th. This case shook Napa. 2 children who were described as kind and full of life were gone in an instant. And the person accused of causing it all is the one they trusted most, their own mother. Now, the community waits as the case moves through court, still trying to make sense of a loss that can never be undone. It was the early hours of November 20th, 2022, in North Tyneside, England. A group of friends had finished a night out and planned to head to a house party in Sheermore. Among them was 25-year-old barmaid Carla Dodds. She had just finished her shift in Whitley Bay and decided to join in for drinks afterward. At 11:30 p.m., Carla drove to a nightclub called Havana, where she drank for a couple of hours. She later claimed she only had 2 glasses of wine and 2 tequila shots. But her blood alcohol results, taken hours later, showed she was still nearly twice the legal driving limit. Witnesses also said she had more to drink than she admitted. Around 2 a.m., Carla offered to drive 6 friends to the party in her small Hyundai i10. The car was built for 5 people, including the driver, but 4 squeezed into the back. 1 sat in front, and a tall man climbed reluctantly into the boot. Among the passengers was 22-year-old Truman Hub from North Shields. He sat in the back with his girlfriend, Lauren. None of the 4 in the back wore seatbelts. Music blasted as they sang along. Truman leaned his head out of the window to feel the wind. Lauren pulled him back and told him to stop, but he kept doing it. Some passengers grew uneasy. One warned Carla she had too many people in the car and was going too fast. He even turned the music down. But Carla ignored him, turned it back up, and kept driving. As she came off a roundabout onto the A191, she lost control. The car hit a lamppost, flipped onto the passenger side, right where Truman's head was out the window, and crushed him instantly. The vehicle rolled again, landing on its roof, then came to rest on the driver's side. Inside was chaos. The man in the boot said he felt a bump, then everything spun before he blacked out. Another woke up to Carla shouting, "We've got to go." Carla and another passenger fled the scene. Truman was briefly seen upright, but soon collapsed. CPR was attempted, but there was no pulse. Police found Carla at her home not long after. As she was arrested, she repeatedly asked, "Who's dead?" In interviews, she described the event as a blur and claimed she was in shock. She admitted it was dangerous to pack 7 people into the car and apologized. Carla pleaded guilty to causing death by careless driving while over the limit, but denied dangerous driving. At her 2025 trial, prosecutors argued the crash was caused by her choices: drinking, overloading the car, loud music, ignoring warnings, and unsafe driving. Witnesses, including Lauren, described Truman leaning out the window, the loud music, and Carla refusing to slow down. Even while awaiting trial, Carla was caught driving under the influence again. Truman's mother, Rosalind, gave a statement saying her life had become unbearable since losing her son. On March 21, 2025, Carla Dodds was found guilty of causing death by dangerous driving. She was sentenced to 12 years in prison and banned from driving for 13 years. The case was closed.